Well. Welcome back. And I'm going to respond to a comment that started out as hurt, rage, and I'm just joking, but all those things, that actually makes a lot of sense to me. I made a video and I thought this would be a kind of a good opportunity basically to make a second video about this guitar and fix some of the things that I got wrong. But the reason I'm doing it is because in a lot of those videos people say, oh, it's a chip, you got a Chibson, that's not real, authentic, you know. And I thought, well, you know what, kind of to the untrained eye, there are some kind of like, you know, suspicious looking things about this Les Paul. And I thought, you know what, let's kind of cover them. You know, is my guitar fake? I don't know. I'll give you my grand conclusion at the end, I guess. Some of you probably already know the answer, but let's talk about this. So let's talk about this. Now I'm going to reference a video from a buddy of mine who actually covered what a KM, really, he goes in way more depth, but Chogley's Guitar Channel, my buddy Austin over there did an amazing video about this guitar, so I'll link his down below if you want to check it out. I'm pulling some facts from his, so I wanted to make sure to reference that. Essentially what I have here is a 1979 Les Paul KM. You can see I've been scratching it up and the stuff's starting to wear off of the back, the finish. But it's a guitar that's been played and loved. Now, there's quite a few things about it, though, that are funky. Like I said, you know, a person who just likes Les Pauls, who doesn't really know a lot about them, would see this guitar and it's like, oh, there's just some weird things about it that maybe they're not aware of. The 70s get kind of a bad rap, you know, a rep, whatever you want to call it, when it comes to this stuff. But I think that the KMs are a little bit of an exception because this is the last line that was made in Kalamazoo before they transitioned to Nashville. And I think that this was kind of, you know, Charlie mentions this in his video, I think it was kind of like the Kalamazoo guys trying to show Nashville how it's done. So I think a lot of attention to detail was put into these guitars. The first weird thing I'm going to talk about that kind of throws people off is the headstock. Now, this is a large headstock. This is actually pretty common back in the 70s. A lot of people call this the shovel style headstock. If you see here on my gold top, which is basically what you're going to see on a modern Les Paul, this one is an 89, but it's still essentially, you can see they went to a smaller headstock. If you've ever played a 50s Les Paul, they had really small headstocks. So there's some different headstocks out there. I don't know why they made this bigger headstock. My guess is possibly to get the tuning pegs further apart to help with maybe tuning stability. I don't know. A lot of people don't like the giant, you know, shovel headstock. But to be honest, the guitar stays in tune like it's nobody's business. Other than I had to get the pots replaced and the volumes, everything else is original. So it's the original nut. You know, I don't know. I just don't have that many issues with this guitar. It stays in tune really, really well. But like I said, a lot of times the headstock can kind of get your attention. You're like, is that a normal headstock? And no, it's not. It was normal for in the 70s. Not so normal now. The logo itself is also a little bit funky looking. Some people might see that. And then, of course, the truss rod saying KM. But I'll kind of like go into detail here at the end what an actual, you know, tech looked at and saw on this guitar. And he's like, yeah, it's definitely like, you know, the real deal. So that's the first thing that might look kind of funky and maybe lead you to think that this is a Chibson. But there's more. Now another thing that is a little bit funkified on people, this is something I got wrong in the original video I did on this guitar, is I was not sure. There's all kinds of different resources online that like one says that, oh no, these are mahogany necks. One says it's maple necks. You know, all this kind of stuff. This is actually a 3-piece maple neck. I think it's part of what gives the guitar its snap. If you're in that tone wood kind of world like I am, I think that this is a very bright sounding guitar. I always say it sounds like a Tele on steroids. It's super snappy. And of course the volute. I think it's funny that so many people did not like this. I remember the tech who was looking at this, who, you know, he has 50s Les Pauls, all that kind of stuff. He is like, God, that ugly volute. I go, it's so funny, because it's like Gibson can't win. They try to fix the issue with the headstock. They put this on here. People complain it looks ugly. Can't win, can they? But so they have this volute on it, which again gets people's attentions. You know, that's very iconic to the 70s, but if you're not like familiar with it, a lot of people see that and they're just like, what is that? There's some other weird things, the way that like the Made in USA is stamped. So the next one, you might notice, some people have commented on it, that, you know, basically these inlays look cheap. And I'm not going to disagree. I didn't really notice it until it was pointed out in the Trogly video. But if you look at a normal Les Paul, was it abalone or pearl, whatever they use, I don't know, is like very like pearly looking. These are really white. They do look cheaper. You know, I'm not going to kind of sugarcoat it for the sake of it being my favorite guitar. I think they do look cheaper. They don't look as nice as that one. And I think that is also something, when you're looking at it up close, people kind of are like, yeah, that looks fake. That doesn't look real. But it is. It's just kind of like, it was only this model, you know, that had this happen to it. A lot of the other ones, I've played other 70s Les Pauls, and they all look like this, but this one's white. It's kind of weird. Now, the next thing I saw people comment on, and yes, it is, again, kind of an inherent trait of these particular Les Pauls, is the, you know, pretty large binding. If you see this, like right here, you can see that's a thick strip of binding. It's a little bit thicker than normal, especially right there. You can see, and that was another thing that I saw people commenting on, like, you know, it's not the best binding work, I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to, you know, try to put this guitar on some pedestal. I'm looking at it and certainly seeing flaws in the binding, but it is, you know, a little bit odd how thick the binding is in some areas. It's like, you know, not the most consistent, but it is what it is. You know, again, there's like weird things in the 70s. I don't understand, like they were trying to make the guitars cheaper, but they made the headstocks bigger. They added a volute. It seemed like it would be more expensive. I'm super confused. But, I don't know, overall, I think it's pretty cool. Now, I've been pointing out a lot of things that are wrong with this here guitar. Not wrong, just different. And, you know, I thought I would point out a couple of things that are right. Now, like I said, all this stuff is documented. You can find it. The pickups are a huge topic. Never that anybody thinks that the pickups are fake. It's just a lot of people think they're DiMarzio pickups. They're not. They're actually Gibson T-tops. They're the same as any other T-top that came in these guitars back then. It's just, I believe, only the Kalamazoo model had the actual double cream covers on them. I think that was exclusive to these. Of course, Gibson got sued, and then had to stop making them with the double cream. You can get T-tops, but the old T-tops are actually pretty expensive, surprisingly. These are pretty sought after. I think the big part of this guitar. So these pickups are pretty low output, and they just have a lot of clarity to them. It's kind of a hard guitar to play because it lets you know when you're messing up. I'll tell you that. But it has that like woody tone that I like whenever I pick. It reminds me of like Nuno or something like that. You know, the way he could mute anything. And I don't know, it has that sound to it for me. So how do we know that it's real? It could be a fake. It'd be kind of an odd one for them to fake, but I guess it's obscure enough. Maybe this is something that they would want to, pass off as a Chibson. But there are a few tells that you can really, in my opinion, say, okay, they probably wouldn't go to this extent to to replicate these particular things. There's a couple little things, the way the serial number style, the Made in USA, the way it's stamped on here, and all that kind of stuff. Those are all certain things. You can look up the serial number and you can find dates. This, the neck was stamped on July 31st, so they have a legit number, stuff like that. So like I've mentioned in other videos, so this guitar turns 40 here in a few weeks, actually. But one of the biggest ways to tell if your guitar is real or not is actually hidden inside the guitar. Now, this guitar does not have the extended neck tendon, which I believe 59s did. There's not anything stamped in here. It's not leaving us much to work with. But here is the answer. This right here. So inside of this plate, which I'm going to give you guys some close-ups of, you can look inside of it, which I've replaced a couple of the pots now. But for one, you have this giant metal cover. Now this is how Gibson used to shield stuff. I highly doubt, a Chinese company is going to replicate something like that, because this is very heavy. Like, this pot is heavy. This is like seriously contributing to the weight of this guitar. This guitar weighs over 12 pounds, and this thing, it's solid metal. Like, it's like the real deal kind of stuff. Now the pots are stamped. The serial number is kind of the key right there. So the pots essentially, or what I was told, are the last thing. All the electronics are the last thing that goes in an electric guitar. So they are all stamped with their serial numbers for 1979. So not that a Chinese company couldn't do this, but these are like metal pots. When they took these out, they're heavy, pots nowadays. Most of them that you're going to probably find in Chibsons are going to be cheap. Basically plastic, essentially, is what they are. And they're probably not going to go, to the detail to get NOS pots and stuff like that in this like $300 guitar. So overall, it's a safe bet. Like I said, I think if you can look at your pots and see what year it's from and even like examine them or something like that, that's going to really give you a good clue, because that was the last thing that went in this guitar. So the neck was stamped. That's what your serial number is. Your serial number is. I can't look underneath the bridge. I've never taken the bridge off. I don't want to. I try not to take the guitars apart. I don't care that much. But the pots, to me, are the real tell that this is not a fake Gibson. So to all you doubters out there, thank you, because it made me look into my guitar a little bit more, and I appreciate that. So other than that, I'm about to out of here. I'm going to keep playing the Les Paul and rocking out. So I'd be curious, did you think my Les Paul was a fake? Don't hurt me, bro. You're cutting me deep right now. So other than that, have a great, fantastic day. Jam out on whatever guitar you have. There are other little like nitpicky things I could have mentioned about this guitar, but you know what? We're going to leave it at that. I feel like playing now. I feel like I've been talking too much. So have a great day. Jam out on whatever guitar you got. Doesn't matter what kind you have. Just have some fun. Hit random strings like what I'm doing, and I'll see you later. Whoop!